Hey, Guy. Crazy market today. I know we've had a big move in markets, but on a day when Germany says they're going to be opening up their economy on Monday, biggest economy in Europe, this would have rallied the market 5% days gone by. I can only imagine what the White House is going to do here. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So what's Germany? I think the fifth largest economy in the world or some fourth or fifth. That's actually was a big headline. I agree with
Biggest
you.
export economy in the world. So you
Right.
take it from there.
And then today, just a few hours ago, I think President Trump announced that tomorrow he's going to talk about the reopening of the United States. And it made me think,
Whoa.
can't believe it. 45 years ago, a movie came out that sort of captured everybody's imagination. And I think a lot of what happened then.
E.T.?
Pardon me?
E.T.?
No,
Star Wars?
By the way, next time I see E.T., it'll be the first time. And Star Wars, by the way.
Me too, on Star Wars. Yeah, no time. Sorry.
Zero interest in Star Wars.
What movie are you talking about?
The movie is Jaws. And if you remember, Chief Brody was under tremendous pressure.
Roy Scheider, great work.
Even though he knew there was danger out there. And he reopened the beaches, and the little Kittner kid went in the water, and we all know what happened. So my concern is that we've come this far as a nation, and if we rush back, we might give up everything we've done, and even more so because the fear might be that much worse on the back end. So I understand why the president wants to get things moving. I totally get it. I think that if this was year one of his administration, he wouldn't be in nearly as much of a hurry. But, we're 6 months away from an election, give or take. And I think that's clearly on his radar screen.
Well, it's interesting. I tell you what, he's going to need a bigger boat because, if you think about where we are and some of the first of all, the macro that we're getting today was a day when retail sales were catastrophic. Home builder sentiment went from 70 to 32. And it's kind of tough to buy a house if you don't have a job. So as much as I'd love it to be 1975, by the way, your metaphor works perfectly here because, again, you've got a limited season from which to make money. Can I take a time out too, though? But if I could beam back in one time in history, I'm not joking about this. It would be probably 1975. I mean, what was going on in that movie in the first 5 minutes? For when I remember, and I was a young kid, I barely understood what was going on in the first 5 minutes of that movie. But I think there was like a beach scene. It was a little naughty. I got my Grateful Dead shirt on, so I'm clearly born out of the wrong generation.
There was a bonfire.
Yeah.
There was alcohol. There was probably something that the kids used to call Mary Jane. There were people with guitars. There were blankets.
There was canoodling.
There were young men and young women. And if you recall, one of the young women caught the attention of one of the young men. They went off to swim. He was too inebriated to make it in the water. Much to her detriment, she did. Right. And the rest of the day is history. So that was going on in 1975.
By the way, I had room for Brody's wife. I had a little time for Brody's wife in that movie. Yeah, Lorraine Gary. So when I think about what we're up against in terms of macro, and we've talked about this so many times.
By the way, I don't mean to correct you, but you inverted two letters. So it's Gary, Indiana, but it was Lorraine Gray.
Gary, Indiana is where the Jackson 5 are from. I remember that. It was a great Saturday morning cartoon, by the way. Probably around the same time. So thinking about how markets and macro are two totally different things. Again, we didn't care about macro data 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Tomorrow, there's going to be a jobless claims number that comes out with probably north of 6 million jobless claims filed, which makes the 4-week total somewhere around 23 million. I don't have tomorrow's number, but I'm guessing. And so the question really is duration. We say this all the time, the duration of what's going on out here. And really, the White House hopes this is not just a short season in Amityville. And I'm afraid that it's not even about that right now.
Yeah. I see you did it again, though. See, Amityville was the town in Long Island that had
the horror. Yeah, they had too many flies up there in that window.
But again, I apologize.
No, that's
to have the bull thesis. I think you have to say to yourself that the reason why the market went precipitously lower was all coronavirus. And you know what? That might actually be the case. I think the flip side of that is the coronavirus was the match on top of what was a mounting tinderbox of just bad things that really came to fruition back in September when you saw all this Fed repo activity, meaning that sort of the plumbing of the system, something was wrong. So I understand why a lot of people will think that there's this huge pent-up demand, and when we finally get to the other end, it's going to be back to normal. I'm not certain that's the case. So although today should have been a lot worse, I mean, the market was down, what is down, like maybe 2%. I think it was actually an encouraging day overall, given the run we've had to the upside, given the macro data that you mentioned, and given the fact that there's still so many uncertainties out there.
Well, and as much as I've been confused on my geographic locations here for these movies, by the way, got a lot of time for The Vineyard, where I think they filmed Jaws. But I've also got a lot of time for Amityville out here on the island. And I don't think, I've said this, I don't think this has to be Amityville horror. I think you've got a case where look, we already don't care about 2020 earnings. So if we're pricing companies on 2021, and that's something that we're going to begin to at least get some guidance into, call it by the third quarter, then that's something I think markets really care about. I think more than anything, I think investors reacted to some sense of this was a black swan that had not been on anyone's radar screen, and that is a case where people are confused of some broader systemic carnage that's not about where market valuations are. And no one would have expected the Federal Reserve to, and we've been cursing the Fed for how long? And if you think about it, to have expected the Fed to come in and basically, do a multiple of 10, what we've seen from them at other times when they stepped in to provide aid is something that I hated as a citizen, but as a market participant, I don't think you get anywhere near in the way of the Fed and global central banks.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think that's really the wild card, right? The magnitude of what the Fed did is a multiple of what we saw in 08, 09, and it happened seemingly overnight. And the bull case is we haven't nearly priced that in. So there's a lot of things to digest here, no doubt about it. And the one thing I want to leave you with, one of the great nicknames in college basketball history was the Amityville Horror. And I'll leave you with that for our viewers out there. Tweet us back. Who was the Amityville Horror?
Good stuff. Tweet us back. Can't wait to get your numbers. See you, guy.
See you tomorrow.